Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ravens Call. I am your host, Tyler Cameron. If you haven't already or you don't know what the podcast will consist of, please go and watch my 1-minute intro video explaining the podcast. This will be available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts should be free. I'm hoping you're not paying for it because nothing I'm saying is really that crazy of stuff to be worth paying for, but you do with it what you wish. But if you want to have it for free and if it's saying you have to pay, please let me know and I will change that. You can find the links to all the streaming services in each of them, or look up my podcast on Instagram, The Ravens Call Podcast. On that note, I hope everyone is having a great day and ready to listen to some exciting NFL and Baltimore Ravens news. All right, first on the agenda is news around the NFL. The first item we talked about I thought was very intriguing because, the thing that has bothered me the most recently has been the talk of the Pro Bowl and the 18-game schedule. Yes, as a fan, I would love another week of football. It's something that I'd be very excited to watch. It gives me just another week of happiness, but it could be very tough on the players, mentally, physically exhausting, and it could change a lot of things. Having that extra week can change a lot of playoff hopes, a lot of injuries, a lot of things that could ripple the effect of who's in the Super Bowl and who's not. And it's all about keeping your guys healthy. The healthiest team normally is the one that can go the farthest normally. So, but article came out, or Joe Burrow was on a podcast talking about the Pro Bowl. And the Pro Bowl is something that they're trying to figure out what to do with it, with the 18-game schedule, as well as trying to improve the Pro Bowl, because the Pro Bowl has been terrible for many, many years, in my opinion, because there's just no interest. We're playing flag football. We're doing these little rinky-dink type of skill competitions that, it's fine to have skill competition, but you're not really playing real big-time football. And I liked it when we were playing the Pro Bowl like it was any other game, but that's not something that people want to do. At the end of the season, injuries can cause and go into that next season. So, but that is up to the NFL and a lot of the players to figure out. But Joe Burrow had a really interesting line, or kind of hypothetical reasoning, as to what to do to break down that 18-game NFL schedule if that were to happen. Is you have 2 bye weeks and the Pro Bowl is week 13. Obviously, the Pro Bowl week 13 nixes the idea of full contact, all-out contests. It's still competitive. They're still probably going to do the flag football, 7-on-7, your other festivities, skills challenges like the NBA does. But, it gives people another big break. You're going to need to have 2 bye weeks. There's no way you're going to have 18-week schedule and not have a team get 2 bye weeks. That's just plain old simple, my opinion. Week 13, I think, is a good benchmark, because if you have your 2 bye weeks before, you've played 11 games. If you only have one at that week, you got 12 weeks. So you have 12 weeks playing, so you kind of get a better understanding of who's really Pro Bowl worthy. But again, that's for the NFL to decide. I think that he made a great suggestion, knowing that he is from a rival team, being the Bengals. It's a little tough to swallow that Burrow's right, but good man, good player. So I liked his idea a lot. I just hope that the NFL puts the best interest of the players, towards this stuff, because it has not really been about the players. It's been more about how much the NFL's money can grow and generate, which we had a very good season last year on that front. And, the Pro Bowl, if you can find a way to improve it that makes money and helps the players, that's a huge win-win. But I highly doubt that that's going to be a win-win for both sides. So takeaways from what Burrow said is the 2 weeks, 2 week bye weeks. I think what would be good too, I don't know if he's referring to it as this, but that Pro Bowl can be your bye week. But at the same time, I do think that it should just kind of technically be like a 3 bye week. Like you get your 2 bye weeks normally, and then the Pro Bowl counts as its own bye week for the people that aren't in the Pro Bowl. So yeah, I think that that's a good idea, but honestly, it's tough to say. I can't really, with the NFL, with the NFL Sunday Ticket, with just really kind of being greedy with money and how, they're whatever generates the most money is what they'll do instead of doing it for the fans, doing it for the players. That's something that really needs to be improved upon in the NFL. So that's my another big takeaway. In other news, second thing we're going to talk about is something that we've heard a lot of. We have heard a lot of this, but not to the point where there's actionable intel or something that's really, front headline like, okay, this is happening. So we have the Native American group is suing the Commanders for damnation. And this has been going on for a while, saying that the Commanders, they wanted to change the name out of the respect of the Native Americans Guardians Association. But the Native American Guardians Association claimed that the Commanders employee called the group fake in the conversation with their former owner. So in that essence of what they're trying to say is that they kind of had a fake conversation as to why they were really doing this. This may have been more of a branding thing rather than just changing the name. But I mean, the Native Americans want the Redskins as the name. That's the funniest part, is they're for it, and for Washington to pull back and say, no, we're not going to do this because of the Commanders, because, of what it stands for. We're going to go to the Commanders. Almost seems a little more suspicious than we recently had entailed because, they say that the Commanders did more than attack the integrity of them. They silenced over 90% of the Native Americans who disagreed with this. They later go on to say that they silenced Americans as well, which, I don't know, this is, with everything that's going on with, Dan Snyder, with the organization as a whole, there is just a lot of stuff that could be the reason behind all of this. It's, I liked how they put this analogy of like the partners of the ownership company and with Dan Snyder, changing the name from the Commanders was, you had the Dan Snyder incident, you had how the organization stands as a whole, you've had player drama, and now this kind of is like a opening of Pandora's box. Like they opened it themselves. And I really think that that is something that I can fully back and fully agree with, because the Washington Commanders have been a joke of the franchise for a while. And it's nothing against the players. It's nothing against the coaches. It's just the organization as a whole. Dan Snyder, I mean, everyone knows what he is and what kind of person he really is. And, they switched organizations to the majority owner and Josh Harris and the limited partner in Magic Johnson. But they haven't really had any big pushes. They've just had more setbacks than they have. So with this going on, I'm on the side of, I would love the Redskins back. I'm very, I guess, biased in the sense of like, I liked the Washington Redskins logo. I liked the team name, but I understood why it was changed. Like the Cleveland Indians, they were changed to Cleveland Guardians, and this is something that, a couple years later, the Native Americans are saying, whoa, like we didn't really have any of these conversations. Like we disagreed with you changing the name. We wanted the name. And yet you guys are coming in here like no, we're going to change it for your benefit, but we're doing it for you. Remember, you owe us, which is a lot of smoke and mirrors on the Commanders' part, just trying to narrate the story, make it about them, so that maybe they get some more money out of it, some more branding, whatever that the case may be. And I'm hoping that Native Americans really go through with their case of suing them for damnation. Because that organization just needs to get checked a bunch of times, because it doesn't just seem like it's from the owner too. It just kind of seems like it's trickling down effect and creating a toxic kind of place to be around. I mean, there's a lot of different places like that. I mean, Browns are one of them. Browns have great players. Browns have great coaches, but their organization is terrible. So, I'm hoping that this situation gets fixed and true justice is kind of created and that truth comes out about what really happened. Saying that, they didn't really compel the name change, which in my instance, I don't really think that they wanted to change the name, but I, I'm only reading and really giving my opinion on what I can see, what I can see from what's put out there about the situation. I was not there. I'm not part of the Commanders. I'm not part of the Native American Guardians Association. Who's in this case. Like, I don't fully know their intentions or what conversations they're really talking about. I can only see from my own two eyes on what the situation is. So, really hoping that the Commanders can hopefully switch their name back and hopefully can provide the case can provide justice for both parties on that. And so our next topic actually goes on to talk about the Netflix show Receivers. And I'm not going to spoil a lot for you. I'm just going to talk about a really big point that it was in the show, but at the same time, it's been posted everywhere, so it's not too big of a spoiler on that front. But the Receivers NFL story, it's kind of like quarterbacks, season 2. So they're doing receivers, have a bunch of bigger name receivers and talking about their lives and everything like that. As far as I'll really go into it, I don't want to spoil anything for you. So one of the guys, shockingly, is Davante Adams. He went in and you can see in the what he's all about. He went from the Packers and Aaron Rodgers to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr, and now he's playing with Jimmy G during the season that they're filming Receivers. And so, they had trouble. They had Josh McDaniels, a lot of trouble with that. So that week where it went, Josh McDaniels got fired, and then they put in their interim coach. That's also when they made the switch at quarterback. And so that was that during the season for me. My wife is a Bronco fan. And so for me, I was like, why would you do something like this? It's kind of shocking. They're 3-3. It's not too bad. You can start to come back from it a little bit. But, and you have Jimmy G. Jimmy G is a good quarterback still. It just depends on what situation he's put in. He did well in the 49ers. He did well in the Patriots. Like, what could have been his best situation? The Raiders obviously weren't his best situation, and it showed. But back to Davante Adams, he actually talks about in the series and in this article, he talks about how he endorsed the rookie quarterback to start and bench Jimmy Garoppolo, which that's no easy feat. And you're thinking, well, maybe he just gave his opinion, which he talks about. He just gave his opinion and signed off on it. But the craziest part in what he said was, in order for me to remain a Raider, in all honesty. So he was done with the Raiders. He was done. I mean, they trade Derek Carr, or I don't know if, don't quote me on it. I don't know if they traded or released Derek Carr, but either way, he's not on the team. To where he came to play with his college buddy. He wanted to play with his college buddy. And then to come in and to learn with a new quarterback. And there was a couple times during the season, I had Davante Adams on my fantasy team. So I watched him take some crucial hits that as a quarterback, you do not throw those kind of hospital passes. And there were a couple where I was like, you're going to make me have to get a new receiver. And I don't want to get a new receiver because Davante Adams is going to help me win my fantasy league. Spoiler alert, I got first in that league. Thank you, Davante Adams. So, and now Jimmy G this season is going to be on the Rams. So it goes to show, Adams is 32 years old. He is wanting another Super Bowl ring. He's not playing. He's not playing in the essence of like he's old, like his skills are diminished. He's still close to his prime. He's still got a couple more years until he really dips down, I believe. And so, they're trying to develop and get a team going fast, and they didn't really go draft a quarterback, which I'm kind of, they got Gardner Minshew, but I don't know if they could have found someone better, but we'll see. I mean, maybe they have that core that they needed to, but he talks about how Davante Adams was livid after Jimmy G missed him on a wide open pass, on Monday Night Football where they lost the Lions 26-14. And Adams had one catch out of his 7 targets in the game. Jimmy G was all over the place last season. Like there was a couple balls. I'm like, dude, like, are you practicing with these guys or what here? Because it's not something that a veteran like him just goes and misses. So definitely could feel the tension. Maybe it was just Josh McDaniel or maybe it was both of them. So, I think that what Davante Adams did was admirable. They played a lot better during the season. The record doesn't, show that, but they had some good moving pieces. They got a good guy at their head coach. So we'll see how they do this season. But very excited to go over that. And very excited to see what happens this season. I don't know if I'm a big Davante Adams this season. I don't know. I might trust Gardner Minshew, might not. But that's a whole nother topic. That's fantasy related. We're talking about what's going on in the world of the NFL. Another one, which is very interesting for my Baltimore Ravens team, is T. Higgins and the Bengals not getting a contract done. I know that he's similar to Brandon Aiyuk, except Brandon Aiyuk had a good year last year, and T. Higgins was either injured or he didn't play very well. And so, he's probably going for some money, but he's not going to get as much as he wants just because he didn't have that good last year to deserve that contract extension. So, he's playing with the franchise tag now, and rightfully so. I mean, you got to see what he does and if he's worth it. But you given massive contracts to Joe Burrow and Chase, that there's not going to be too much for Higgins. I mean, they let Mixon go, which I was shocked by. Like Mixon's one of those guys that you kind of need in your backfield. So I was very shocked to see them to let him go, and especially for him to become a Texan, because the Texans are on the come up, and that's a team you don't want him going to. But you got to do what you got to do, business. So and there were a couple comments I believe where they're saying like, I think it was recently this week that the owner was talking about like you're not just going to pay everybody what they want. You got to pay for what they're going to give you or something along the lines of that. And it's shocking because it's like the season hasn't even started and you're basing it off of what he has done last season. Yes, his contract extension should not have been that high. He didn't have the best season. He's very injury prone, but when he was playing good, he was playing good. Like the year before, he was really good. That's what made them a huge threat because you have to deal with Chase, but then you got Higgins, who's a mismatch in and of itself. So, it's scary, but we'll see what the Bengals do. I definitely think that this will probably be his last season in a Bengal uniform. which, or it could just possibly be his last half season with them, because they could, if he's doing decently well and they know they're not going to be able to get payment out of him, they can just go add value. But that depends on their record. That depends on numerous different things. But you can up his price if he's doing really well and then get either some draft picks or get some other cornerstone pieces you need to kind of bolster your team on that front. I mean, if T. Higgins wants to go to the rival like Patrick Queen kind of did to us, by all means, like, we'd love a receiver like you. So, but, Brandon Aiyuk is also someone I think the Ravens should go for, but that's just me. I want every player, but I kind of know a little bit of what we need. But yeah, so that is it for the news around the NFL. So now we're going to pivot into talking about your beloved and most favorite team that you listen to me for is the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about with the Baltimore Ravens is, we're going to take a moment of silence a little bit to, really talk about something that, we don't wish on anyone, which is Jacoby Jones's death. He played for the Ravens. He played for many different teams. Very young, very saddened by his death. I hope the best for his family and friends. Hoping that, it, don't wish death on anyone, but I'm hoping it was peaceful and he wasn't in pain. He didn't suffer, I mean to say. Very, I don't know him. I didn't know him personally. I didn't know him that well, but, never want to hear about someone going whenever, whatever age. But he was very young, and I hope the best for his family and everyone. And I hope that his legacy lives on. You're Baltimore Raven for life. Never forget what you did, NFL career, and as a person. So, let's take a moment of silence to commemorate him. Okay, on to some other news about the Ravens. We're going to talk about 6 Ravens who will need a bounce back year to kind of really show themselves again, because they haven't really either shown themselves in many years or they haven't shown themselves of last year. One of them is obviously for me is Ronnie Stanley. The guy is constantly injured. He had a good season in 2019, but has just kind of been very injury prone the past 4 years. He does really good when he's out there, but just he can't stay healthy. You got to stay healthy, and especially because we're not going to have as big an arsenal at the offensive tackle line that we used to where we're able to mix and match like we did last year. And so it'll be very tough for him to really produce if he's not out there. So, he says he feels great. He says he says he's best. He's 30 years old. He's trying to go for another deal after he got reconstructed contract this offseason, but that will also make him an unrestricted free agent in this upcoming season. So this is make or break for him if he's going to stay with the Ravens or not. He's a great offensive lineman, but he has got to stay healthy, got to produce, and then he will get the contract he needs. Next on the list is David Njoku, which I remember this guy in the 2022 NFL draft. He was definitely one of those guys that, he was a young up and coming prospect that he definitely had high hopes for, because rushing the quarterback was something we're still looking for to this day. He came into the league, after tearing his ACL on his pro day. So it was tough for him to bounce back a little bit. He was able to kind of do well here and there, but, he's still trying to figure out himself. He's, again, another person that he's injured quite a lot, that we're hoping that he can kind of bounce back the same way as Ronnie Stanley, and it's just injuries with the Ravens. If you can stay healthy, the production was normally there because our defense is normally really good. So that's one of those things that you stay healthy, this team's golden. Next person who definitely, in my opinion, like I can't say this enough. This guy really, really needs to have a bounce back year because he's the guy that will make or break in our offense is Rashad Bateman. So he was rewarded a contract extension in the offseason, which I was kind of shocked by because he's either been injured or he's kind of just been irrelevant. Last year, he started to step up a little bit more because, OBJ was there. So they were mainly focused on making sure OBJ couldn't beat anyone. And so, and we had Zay Flowers. Now we're at that point of he's going to be a wide receiver 1. Zay Flowers is going to be more of that deep threat slot guy that this is going to be his year of figuring out, do we keep you or do we just trade you to try and get a better one? Because honestly, you haven't done much since being drafted. So, and when I'm saying these things, Bateman, if you're watching, you're probably not watching, but I'm saying these things not to knock you. I'm not saying these things to say that you're trash, to say that you don't deserve a spot, nothing like that. I'm saying this in the essence of I'm looking at the numbers. That's all I can go off of. I've watched every game. I know you put in the work. Now it's just got to, it's just got to come out in this season. And I believe you can do it. I do. I believe in all the Ravens and how they can work because we're a very good team and very good at development. But you have got to be that guy this year. You have got to step up, and I believe you can. It is a lot of pressure to prove yourself, whether it's staying healthy, whether it's being the wide receiver 1 we need many times. But I believe you can do it. I believe you're going to be super motivated to do that. So another Raven we have is Marlon Humphreys. Very injury prone again. Very much that guy who, when he comes off injury, he just plays a step slower on that front. So for him to come and be one of those guys that needs to bounce back year, I truly agree with because, he's always kind of that Pro Bowl guy. He's always here and there, but, it just seems like really last season he was kind of the corner 2. Like Brandon Stevens was corner 1. We had a lot of other different guys stepping up, and he was just kind of there. He's constantly just missing games. And then he missed our divisional round, which, injuries are going to happen in the league. That's just kind of what happens. But when a guy is consistently injured every season, it puts a bad spot on your resume. Marlon Humphreys is still one of the top lockdown corners. I'm not knocking him. I'm just trying to motivate him a little bit to be the best he can be. I know that he's up there in that top 10 corners. He's one of the silent ones. But this is the year we're going to need you the most, and we cannot afford you to be out because we have the Bengals, we have the Browns, we have the Steelers. All teams have gotten better. You need to step up and play like the star that you are. So that's all I'm going to say about him. They labeled him overrated, which, okay, cool. Sure. Add more fuel to the fire for him. Good for you. This is Alex K said this on a podcast, which cool, man. When he may be overrated because he's injured, but when he's on the field, man, is very underrated. He's scary underrated because he just he doesn't talk. He lets his game do the work. And so It just when he's on the field is the main key. That's all we need. You to be on the field. If you're on the field, I feel safer because he's a great corner, but he's also a great tackler. And what I mean by that is it's not his tackling skills for the most part. It's his ability to strip the ball, to poke the ball out in any means necessary. That's what he's I don't know how to say it specifically, but he's definitely the number one guy on that, in my opinion. So next bounce back guy is Ben Cleveland. He's going to have a lot of shoes to fill with, us losing a couple different linemen, one of our Pro Bowlers last year. So, he played really well last season. So that's why I think we were able to let some people go. But this guy is somebody who, again, some injuries can derail a team, and he was one of them. But again, I still think he's really good. We let Simpson and Zeitler walk in free agency because we believed in this guy. So he has a lot to prove. Now, the last guy is somebody who it actually took me a minute because I remember us signing him and he did semi-decent first year, but last year he was kind of non-existent because we had so many people on defense that did really well that this guy was kind of unheard of. And that was Marcus Williams. He was the guy. He was the guy we spent a lot of money for. He ended up getting injured, of course, all that kind of stuff, but he was kind of underrated because you got Kyle Hamilton, who burst onto the scene and did really well. You had Geno Stone. You had Millette. You had a bunch of different guys that were just killing it on defense. You didn't really hear about Marcus Williams. I think this is the year that you're going to hear a lot about Marcus Williams because they're going to start going and figuring out, oh, shoot, maybe let's focus away from Kyle Hamilton. Let's pick on him. So I definitely think that this is Marcus Williams' year. I believe he will have a bounce back year. I think it's just one of those things where people, you're trying to say he needs a bounce back year because he didn't do as well as the other Ravens on the defense, which quite frankly, it is very tough to play up to that level every single time. Not every player on our team can do that because last year our defense was flat out amazing. So I definitely think that, again, with all 6 of these guys, it's injuries. Injuries are the main concern. If you guys can stay healthy, this team is Super Bowl bound almost every year. And I'm not saying that as like a cocky statement or anything. That's just in general. That's with any team. Half the time it's just you stay healthy, you're good. We have a lot of depth and a lot of different positions that can thrive. To where if you stay healthy or injuries happen here or there, we're able to adapt really well. We're a good adaptable team. So that's something that I look at. Now, the next one that I have talks about, Brandon Aiyuk. And, he did end up getting a contract, which is kind of shocking to me if you could say the least, because, I talked about it before in our last episode about how, there was some saying going around where, he could get paid, he could not get paid. Is he going to get traded? Is he going to stay for the year? And, honestly, it shows, he requested a trade this week because he didn't get a new contract, but he did still go to training camp, which is something that, he's still trying to work on himself, but, he still wants that deal getting done so that he's set and they're ready to make a run. Now, as a front office, you're not trading him. The only way you're trading this guy is if you can get a tit for tat out of this, that it doesn't harm your team in any way of hurting your playoff chances and everything, because you guys are going for Super Bowl run. You guys have made it to the Super Bowl. good couple years and just haven't been able to cross that finish line. So you're not going to trade one of your best players away, especially this season when you're trying to go for it. There's just no way. And I mean, they say that there's no intention, but it's like you'd be kind of shocked if they did. If you're going to trade him, you're going to trade him for a king's ransom. You're going to get good players out of it that you can build and not have to give up your title contention for. So, personal opinion, I don't like how he's handling it. It's nice to be in that situation, but when you're talking about how you a Ferrari, you deserve to get paid like Amon-Ra St. Brown, or even Debo. I'm like, dude, you're the second guy. When Debo's not in, you didn't do anything. The two losses they had after Caffrey got hurt and Debo got hurt, Aiyuk was nowhere to be found. And so, he's not even the most valuable player on his team. So that's kind of why, they're not going to give you the contract because they have to pay McCaffrey. They have to pay Debo. They're probably going to have to pay Brock Purdy. And now, which we'll get into in our next episode, they have to deal with the holdout of Trent Williams. So who is the best tackle in the game? So I don't see him thinking to himself, hey, like I'm the guy. Like we'll see. We'll see if you go to a team where you're the wide receiver one, we will see if you are the guy. But right now, you are number 2. Up until Debo, you were number 2. I mean, you were 1, and you didn't do well as the number 1 guy. So, we'll see. If he were to go to the Ravens, however, and be the wide receiver 1, I think he could do that there because we have so many weapons that he could hurt a lot of different defenses because you can't just guard Aiyuk. You have Aiyuk, you got Flowers, you got Bateman, you got Andrews, you got our running backs. And, to top it all off, you have to guard Lamar because you got to QB spy him or else he's going to run all over you. So this is how it kind of is. But let's go into his top 5. I do believe that we can get him. I don't think that we're going to be able to give him a huge contract unless we give something out in return. But that's something that will happen. I don't think we can trade for him. We can trade for him, but the 49ers would never allow that to happen. You would not trade Aiyuk to a team that if you play them in the Super Bowl, you're going to lose. So Ayuk's about to get, he's on his 5th year option, looking around $14 million. So it's pretty tough, and then you might have to franchise tag him. But here's the 5 teams that they are predicting that he could go to. The Commanders. That could be good for just the new quarterback to just have another one. You have Scary Terry, and then you have him. That's good. Also, I'm fine with him going to the Commanders. He doesn't pose a threat to anyone. The only problem is the 49ers aren't going to get anything. What are you going to trade him for, Scary Terry? You have to get a lot in return for him. The next team I don't want. The next team I do not want them giving him to is the Steelers. Russell Wilson does not need any more. I mean, he needs weapons, but I don't really want him going to the Steelers. I don't think the 49ers would want that either because there's not much that the Steelers would probably give them in return because the Steelers are trying to go to the playoffs too, to where they're not going to give you one of their game chess pieces for him. So, that's tough. The other one is the Patriots. The Patriots do not have much to offer. Like the compensation of draft picks. If you're just going to give him draft picks, you might as well just do that at the end of the season, or you would have already done it right now and figured out a way to sign or trade for another receiver. So he would be very good for the Patriots, but the 49ers are not going to get the value out of it that they would from keeping him. The other one, which, okay, cool, like, is the Detroit Lions. And what I mean by that, cool, is you think that the 49ers are going to give one of their key players to a team that they'll probably play in the playoffs and have to go against to get to that Super Bowl, and you give them another weapon who they already have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You want to give them Brandon Aiyuk too? Yeah, I don't know who really thought to themselves, yeah, this is a great thing. I mean, obviously it says let's get crazy. Yeah, that's real crazy, man, because you're not giving up. You're not giving them up. Okay, if you're going St. Brown for Aiyuk, sure, but that's not going to happen. I don't think the Lions are willing to give you everything you want for him. So I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to stay put. If not, go to the Commanders, go to the Patriots. Make it to where it weakens the 49ers, and I don't have to have any threats in the AFC. Because if he goes to Steelers, that heightens our division by a lot, and our division is already crazy as is. So I do not need that. So, all right, here to our last topic, which this is still very recently new. Still really trying to decide on my end how I feel about it. So I guess to say the least, my reaction and my emotions are going to be authentic because I haven't really looked too much into this. I just saw the news report and kind of wanted to jump into it. So the news I'm talking about is we signed Eddie Jackson. He was a former Bear, which, just going off the top of my head, Roquan Smith was. Which, for me, I think that's amazing because, I wanted Simmons, obviously. I wanted Jamal Adams, but Eddie Jackson's really good safety. He's a first-team All-Pro in 2018. He has a chance to play alongside, two great safeties in general, which just makes it to where Kyle Hamilton can just play the middle of the field. The awesome part is he played, I think he played at Alabama. Yeah, I believe he played at Alabama. Don't quote me on that, but I think he played at Alabama. He has a lot of players that he's probably played with, and I know he's played with Roquan, so that'll be fun for him. He talks about one of the reasonings that he chose here. I'm trying to figure out like what he's kind of going off of why he chose the Ravens. He talks about a bunch of players. He played with Humphreys and Henry from college. He calls him and Zay Flowers little cousins. He's been a fan of Lamar Jackson, so he's very excited, I guess. And the awesome part is he does have a lot of ties to a lot of the players, which makes it that much more special because when you already have those connections built in, all you have to do is learn the plays. Playing with Roquan is good. Playing with some college guys is a little weird, but it creates that vibe. But playing with Marvin Humphreys is always another good one. Like, Derrick Henry, it doesn't really matter too much, but it's nice to have those people that you already know on the team. So I'm very excited. I think he's another good pick. I didn't really talk too much about him because I was kind of on the fence of whether he would be a good fit. I hadn't really looked too much in the background of did he have a lot of ties here? And it almost was crazy to me that forgot that he played for the Browns. Like that's something so crazy to me. So, but that is something that happened. Also, we re-signed, but Mollett's another good piece. Worley is always another one. So having our safeties be our top priorities and doing really well is really good because we have a lot of big names, but not on the offensive side as much like with the receivers, but we have a lot of big name guys that are ready to compete, ready to go and get us that title. and I think we have a good amount of pieces. We did lose a lot, so we have to make up for it. And these little signings here, they don't look like much, but if the cards play out right with connections and relationships, we could have another great defense like we did last year. And hopefully our offense steps it up with, the huge addition of Derrick Henry in the run game to where it opens up our pass game. So very excited to see that. So as the clock winds down on another riveting episode, I wanted to thank you all for listening. A couple more things. Yeah, these episodes are pretty sporadic. I'm trying to find time. A lot of stuff is going on in my life right now that trying to balance all this stuff out, but I'm working on it. I promise you. I'll make sure to post something on my podcast Instagram page to always let you know when the episode is up. Another reminder is that my podcast will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So make sure to like and subscribe to whatever platform you prefer. Again, please feel free to comment or ask a question if you want me to bring up something in the podcast here or in the comments. I'm more than happy to address it. I'm more than happy to talk about it on that front. Another thing too is, again, all the music and sound is provided by my brother-in-law Justin. So again, Justin, if you're listening, thank you for that. Well, Ravens Nation, thanks for joining me on this podcast. Until next time, stay fierce, stay loyal, and keep rooting for that purple and black. I'll see you next time on The Ravens Call.